What's going on, everybody? We are live here on YouTube. We are the Angle of Pursuit podcast. We are here to get you set for week 3, and with me to help everybody break it all down, answer all your questions. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? And I apologize if I have wandering eyes this morning, but when you're trying to set those 20 to 30 different fantasy lineups, including daily lineups and all that stuff, it's a painstakingly long task. So
for sure, and especially because we're starting this now. Actives and inactives will start rolling in, including Julio Jones, who is inactive today.
He is out. Get Russell Gage in your lineup, folks.
We've been telling you for 2.5 weeks to get Russell Gage, add him to your team. It's deployment time. He's been awesome through 2 weeks with Julio there. Now we need to look to him to step up in a big way. Is he a guy that potentially you're setting some DraftKings, some FanDuel lineups, little Matt Ryan, Russell Gage stack, a little maybe Hayden Hurst if you're feeling lucky?
I was just going to say, I really think you're going to see the ownership of Calvin Ridley skyrocket after this.
He's going to be popular.
So I really think the guy who's going to benefit the most is going to be Hayden Hurst before Russell Gage. But Russell Gage will see a handful more targets. But I do think that this, although I picked him to break out last week, Hayden Hurst against the Cowboys, he scored a touchdown. There's a lot of opportunities, but this could be the week where he sees, double-digit targets as still top 3 in the NFL from tight end is running routes. So, Hurst and Russell Gage to me are great values in daily. And if you have them in your roster today, you need to put them in your fantasy lineups.
Yep. Totally agree. As people start rolling in, this is what we do every Sunday morning. We run through the news, help get you set for week 3. We kind of react to some of the initial stuff. We'll give you some preemptive strikes, some names to add now before next week's waiver wire, and a plethora of other things. And as always, feel free to drop questions. I'm actually going to make a little banner so people know to leave questions.
Any questions? Let's go. Come on. Start, sit, bets. Tell us that we're absolutely batshit crazy.
Is there anything? So I guess before we dive into all this stuff, obviously you're going to be setting lineups, getting everything ready. I'm going to be doing the same as we roll through the news and the latest. What's the one game that's going to garner a lot of interest from you, whether it's just from a betting angle, whether it's from a fantasy angle? Where's your head at today?
So, obviously everyone's going to be looking at the Seahawks and the Cowboys game because that has the highest over-under of the Sunday slate. You're going to see tons of people jumping on the stacks of that in daily. Anybody who you have on either of those teams in fantasy is going to be starting in your lineups. But I think the most intriguing game for me, and not necessarily from a fantasy perspective, I think that's got to be the Rams and the Bills. I want to see how far Buffalo has come and see if they really are, the team that we kind of spoke about preseason of taking that next step and being able to win the AFC East, because the Rams look to be every bit as, exciting as they were a couple years ago when that offense was rolling. Because they've steamrolled, they really dominated the Cowboys and they ran over Philadelphia last week. So. Yeah. And another interesting note to this game is I saw Sean McVay is something like 7-1 when going to the East Coast or something. So
I'm a little concerned about this as somebody who's backing the Bills this week. I do think there's obviously Jared Goff isn't a great quarterback, but when he gets to be in play action, work off of the run, and kind of scheme things up with Sean McVay, he seems to be a much, much better quarterback, one that is capable of taking his team to the Super Bowl. So if this offensive line has come as far as we've seen through 2 weeks, they can run block as well. And no matter who it is, whether it's Brown or Henderson or Cam Akers, they're producing effective runners. That could say a lot about this team, especially considering they're having to come all the way back to California and then all the way back to Buffalo. That's why I'm on Buffalo this week. I think Buffalo's legit. That's why I think Josh Allen, he's still working on that MVP campaign. But I think I'm 100% with you this week. There's 3 games that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. It's Pittsburgh, Houston, it's Minnesota, Tennessee, and Philadelphia and Cincinnati. the Eagles. And even the Falcons, Bears, to be honest, Eagles, Falcons, Vikings, and Texans are all teams that, everybody had some interest in terms of fantasy, in terms of what they could be, in terms of, probably playoff contenders, and they've all started really, really poorly. So this is the week they either put up or shut up, and if some of these teams, like there's a non-zero chance that Houston or Minnesota could just be really bad teams and kind of fall off. But if they show up today and make some noise, there could be some legit, like, oh, maybe this team will figure it out, because it's still early, but starting in an 0-3 hole is a big challenge that it's hard to get out of.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you're making about these 0-2 teams who we all kind of had some at least decent expectations for this year. I think Houston's the one that they're just going to be in trouble, because I really don't see them beating Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I do think we were talking pre-recording. I think the Vikings have a legit chance of upsetting Tennessee today. I think people are kind of sleeping on that game as a potential shootout there. I know Minnesota, they've struggled, tremendously so far, but
I've watched a lot of Kirk Cousins through 2 weeks. He looks bad. Like, he looks really bad. Like, the Trevor Lawrence memes are killing me on Twitter.
Those are awesome.
So I'm really enjoying that. I will say John Ross is a healthy inactive today.
Ooh, damn.
So T. Higgins season is officially upon us. Obviously, Drew Sample looks interesting.
Don't forget Mike Thomas.
Yeah, I've been hearing about him for how long now? So yeah, if you we'll talk preemptive strikes here in a little bit, but if you have that injury spot, if you have that player on the end of your bench that you're not going to play because you were holding or whatever, it might make sense to pick up T. Higgins. Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller are both active today. Full go ahead on both of those guys.
Hey, man, if you have Darren Waller, unless you have like in my case, in one league, I have Dallas Goedert as my backup, so I may just roll Goddard out there just to play it safe. But more than likely, you're going to have one tight end on your roster, and you have Darren Waller. And yeah. I don't care any of these streaming options; none of them offer the upside that Waller does. So you're sticking with Waller.
Yeah, I'm not like picking up Logan Thomas or Drew Sample or any of that stuff.
No,
over him.
Nope.
So, 100%. Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson's another guy that, like, I don't know about the Vikings, but if they're passing a little bit more and they're a little more effective, he may be somebody that's interesting that maybe, not today or tomorrow, but in the coming weeks we end up deploying.
Yeah, because I really don't see Minnesota playing this poorly for the entirety of the season, and eventually they're going to get something going on offense that isn't just Dalvin Cook. So, if you're looking, I think Justin Jefferson is a guy who people have probably dropped in your leagues just because of the poor start that they've seen, and he's somebody worth a flyer because Minnesota will eventually pick it up. I have faith that offense will get going slightly.
Yep, totally agree. Hey, I've been talking to some people, via Twitter and text and whatnot. With the injuries to running backs, is there a world where you're comfortable playing Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jerick McKinnon this week, especially if it's any like half or full PPR?
Are we talking in the same league?
In the same lineup, yeah.
I think if it was a half PPR, I'd feel more comfortable just because their skill sets kind of offset each other in that scoring format. But if it's a full PPR, I'd be extremely worried that Jeff Wilson does not find the end zone.
Yeah.
And he has little to no appeal in the passing game. So
yeah, well, see, this is where my head's at in full PPR is I think the Niners play well today. I think they win. And I think Jeff Wilson probably scores a touchdown, maybe two. And then I think McKinnon does enough between the running and the passing game so that they can both be deployed. Obviously, it depends on who else you have, but with the injuries to McCaffrey and to Saquon Barkley and, people running out, like, is there a world where you're fine playing Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a great point, but I see those two guys as being more talented than the combination of what McKinnon and Jeff Wilson offer. I mean, Jeff Wilson is like fourth on the depth chart heading into the season. So
yeah, but we also saw 3 or 4 games last year when he actually got his full run that multiple touchdown performances. Now, granted, that could have been a blip and something that just happened last year. And obviously nothing to expect going forward, but like we've seen this offense be highly productive. I know Nick Mullins is playing, but I don't know. I'm still optimistic that both it's not ideal for sure, and I'm definitely looking for other ways to not play both of them. But if you're in a pinch, I don't hate playing both of them.
I think I worry about if San Francisco does play as like you're forecasting them, and say they are in the lead for the majority of the game, and they're able to kind of jump out to a decent sized lead. I think we see them like milk the hell out of the clock, which in turn would then limit what the scoring opportunities would be for a Jeff Wilson or a Jerick McKinnon. Whereas if you look at what the Chargers are going to be doing, even though they're playing at the slowest pace in the NFL before last week, Carolina, they're not going to hold the ball very long because they're going to be throwing it all over the field. And that's going to give them more opportunities to possess the ball, which gives them more chances to put up yards and points and touchdowns and stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be a difficult situation to kind of assess because it's going to be dependent on what their opponent is able to do there against the 49ers.
Yeah. Got a couple questions rolling in. Stefan Diggs or Jerick McKinnon in full PPR?
Oh, man. I mean, hopefully, I would assume that your other wide receivers are going to be like legit number ones. That Diggs is going to be, kind of shoved to the side just because he's probably going to be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. But I mean, you can't help but notice the fever pitch about what McKinnon is going to do this week. So in a full PPR as the lead back, they seem to like him. He's going to get a bunch of receptions. His floor is probably safer than what Diggs is going to offer you this week.
Yeah. Man, that is tough. Yeah. I think McKinnon's definitely a safer option. I think Diggs.
Yes.
I think Diggs has a much higher ceiling, so it really depends on what you need. A little fun fact for you there, Brian. Stefan Diggs has more receiving yards than the Vikings whole team today, or I guess not last week. So that is kind of interesting. Obviously, he balled out in a big way.
That's a tough one because Stefan Dix is one of the best route runners in the NFL. So I don't care how good your corner is. They're going to find a way to get him into space.
Well, and I think I could see them using him in kind of moving him around so Jalen Ramsey can't sit on him all day.
Yep.
So, yeah, like I said, if you want safety and just a good solid floor, McKinnon's your option. If you're looking at your matchup going, I need a little bit more than that, I need to shoot for the moon, Stefan Diggs would be the play. Let's head to the betting board for a bit, Brian, and take a look at some of these lines. We obviously break these down every Thursday, Friday, post it up on YouTube for everyone to come check out our favorite bets. The Texans number keeps shrinking. It's 3.5 now. I
don't get it.
I'm a little concerned about that game. Week 3 is gonna. I feel like it has the potential to be a bloodbath week, and everything in my head says take Pittsburgh, and that's what scares me.
Well, you shared a stat with me about the teams that started 0-2 against the spread, and 0-2 against the spread has led to the next week and the third week these teams hitting at like a 65% clip. So
yeah.
Houston falls into that boat. Dallas is 0-2 against the spread. I've heard a couple analysts talk about how the sharps are looking at making their bets late on the Cowboys with the points as the public was betting Seattle early and often. Houston, though, their offensive line is like Swiss cheese right now, and now they're going up against the most fearsome front four in the NFL, who doesn't need to blitz to get pressure, and against a pass defense who they're all ball hawks. I just don't see a world where Houston is even in this game.
Yeah, that's where my head is at. Is like I know Deshaun Watson's incredible and can move around and can do all that, but I have a hard time envisioning him not running around and getting crushed in TJ Watt in the backfield. And yeah,
dude, I'm going to go based off of what my eyes have seen so far this year, and that is that Houston on offense is a mess, and Pittsburgh's defense is every bit as good as what we thought they were going to be this year. So
yeah. And then Atlanta's now like 2.5 or 3, depending on where you look at them. Like, I know Julio's not playing, but I don't think he's a half point or even a full point move. And yet we're talking about the Falcons as less than a field goal at home versus the freaking Chicago Bears. I think that's going to be an add to the card this week. I
still like Chicago.
I don't know. Yeah. So if we're looking at the cards, we're looking at stuff we've bet this week. What's your top option? What's your second favorite option?
So, after we were talking about it more, the injuries that were kind of piling up for the Raiders, I'm just going to be hammering New England. I mean, I'm on one site right now, and it's all the way up to a full touchdown. It's up to 7. And when we were looking at it earlier this week, it was at 5.5. And that to me was just that was a smash button. Like, you have to bet that. New England is one of those teams right now that their offense is hitting on all cylinders. Their defense is still really good. They're still one of the best in the NFL. They went up against the juggernaut in Russell Wilson last week. The Raiders are by no means anywhere near that efficient on offense. Derek Carr will fold under any bit of pressure he gets. Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs both came into this game nursing injuries and missing the first 2 practices of the week. So we don't know how healthy they really are, if that's just a ploy, if what they're doing. I really think New England is going to lay it to them this week, and I love that, the 7. And then
I think 7. Like, I'm with you. I like New England a lot, and I really wish I had gotten it inside the touchdown at this point.
I like it all the way up to double digits. That's how much I'll tell you I like the Patriots today.
Wow.
Yep. Mark it down. 10 points. I know that's bold.
That's bold, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also don't think you're wrong. I think there still is some 6.5s out there, so if you can find it, I would jump all over that. I'm looking at Cleveland -7, and I'm looking at the Eagles -5.5, and maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment, but that is an area I feel like both provide a ton of value.
Yeah, I like the Browns too against the spread. I think they're a sneaky good bet because the public is probably hammering Washington, being that Cleveland has kind of struggled early on in the year. They barely were able to beat the Bengals. Washington has looked pretty good. I know they lost by 2 touchdowns last week against Arizona, but that was garbage time points for them. Cleveland is also one of those teams that they're actually playing at a pretty decent pace, even though they're tops in the NFL in run percentage. So even with them running the ball a ton, they're still able to put up a lot of plays, a lot of points, a lot of yards. And Washington is the least effective team in the NFL as far as creating yards per play. So I think they're going to have a difficult time moving the ball against Cleveland's pass rush and stuff like that. So I do like Cleveland against the 7 as well.
Jarvis Landry or N'Keal Harry just got dropped in the chat. I think Jarvis is the play. N'Keal Harry was somebody I was looking at today, but it sounds like he's dealing with a shoulder injury that's kind of hampered him through 2 weeks. I'm looking for the latest news to see if he's officially active today.
He is active.
He is officially active. Yeah. I think I'm going Jarvis. I think Baker's going to be solid, and Jarvis is continuing to make plays. And as much as I like the potential of N'Keal Harry, if that game gets as sideways as we think it can, it could be a lot of Cam, a lot of running, and not a lot of N'Keal Harry targets.
Yeah, I'm right there with you there. I think there's a good opportunity that this game against the Raiders is very similar to what we saw New England do in Week 1, where they threw the ball 19 times.
Yeah.
And so, I just don't think the opportunities are going to be there for the Patriots wideouts this week.
So Devonta Freeman is officially active today for the Giants. They still have Wayne Gallman. They still have Dion Lewis.
Don't fall into the trap, people.
Yeah, I feel like I can't start any of these guys at this point.
No.
And even if I see a game or two, I'm never going to feel great. If I had to start one, if I was in a league where you have to start at least one Giants running back, Freeman would probably be that guy. But like, if you say you own Jerick McKinnon, would you start Freeman or Jeff Wilson Jr.?
Oh, I'm starting Jeff Wilson Jr. I'm not touching a guy who just got into he just put the uniform on.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably active only for a depth reason, and he probably knows maybe a handful of plays, and he'll probably see a handful of snaps and maybe 3 to 5 touches for a team that they couldn't. Saquon Barkley, who is one of the most athletically gifted running backs we've ever seen come into the NFL, he couldn't even get more than 1.5 yards per touch out of the backfield. So what do we think these other scrubs are going to do? Like, I'm not touching that situation with a 10-foot pole.
Ooh, we got some heat right here. We got to start 2.
Flex 1.
Okay, so we're starting 3 total.
Start 2, flex 1.
Yeah, so I think Juju and is it Juju? Juju, Calvin Ridley, and Deontay Johnson.
Oh man,
like Odell has a nice matchup, a nice opportunity. We saw him look much better last week against Cincinnati. Another cake matchup against Washington.
I worry about the game script there, though.
Yeah, it's fair. I think Calvin Ridley's a no-brainer, right? We can put him in for sure. Okay,
he's a top 10 play this week.
It's OBJ, Juju, or Deontay Johnson. As much as I love Bobby Woods, that offense the Rams' offense so far has been much more run dependent. We saw Higbee's breakout last week. I think there's gonna be a pass catcher every week that's gonna be incredibly useful at the Rams, and maybe a couple. But I don't think this is the week to play Robert Woods, especially among the other names that are listed here. So it's really.
I'm also not opposed to going with Ridley and then both Steelers wide receivers this week.
That's kind of where my head went initially. And obviously, if you're playing DFS, then you throw Big Ben and call it a day. But yeah, so yeah, I think Juju and Deion. Like, if you had to pick one Steelers running back or receiver, then we can compare OBJ to them. But if you had to start one, Juju or Deontay Johnson, who are you starting?
If we're talking fantasy, like redraft fantasy or dynasty or anything like that, I'm probably going Deontay Johnson because Ben Roethlisberger has taken a liking to him. He's thrown him the ball a ton. Yeah. But if we're looking at like a DFS lineup, I'm probably fading Johnson and going to Juju just because more people are on Deontay. But
so we'll go Calvin
Johnson.
Ridley. We'll go Deontay Johnson as your 2, and then it's really Juju or OBJ in your flex. That Texans secondary is god awful. That defense is awful. I do think Houston will do enough to make it interesting. But yeah, I think you start the Steelers receivers with Calvin Ridley.
Man, what a world we've gotten to. OBJ went from a consensus like top 3 wide receiver to now he can't even make a team of three positions.
But to be fair, that is one hell of a wide receiver core. I like that. I like that lineup. That's going to give you a lot of flexibility every week. Yep. Let's talk Reggie Bonifon and Mike Davis and the Panthers. Curtis Samuel is somebody that we're both going to be pounding the table for. I think is incredibly interesting. That is another game I really want to watch today. But the one thing we have seen in the past is when the starter goes out, it's not necessarily the other guy who's been active that just automatically vaults in there. Sometimes there's a very role specific deployment. And we've seen and I'm wondering I'm not playing Reggie Bonifon today, but if you have a room on the end of your bench and Reggie Bonifant is available, I'm adding him to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Because Mike Davis he's never been a guy who's been able to maintain production at a consistent level out of a starting role. And everybody got so excited after what they saw from him last week because he saw 8 receptions, but that was in a game that they were trailing the entirety of the day. They completely abandoned the running game in the second half. And they had nobody else back there. They had the Armagh guy, whatever the hell, the fullback dude who ruined their season in week 1. And so now they have Bonifant active. Curtis Samuel, there's no way that he's not going to see anywhere from 5 to 10 carries this week, I think, because Joe Brady's already come out and said, like, they need to make it a point to get their playmakers the ball. And Mike Davis does not fall under that category, and Curtis Samuel does. So I think we see a lot more plays to Samuel out of the backfield than people are really expecting.
Yeah, and I think, and so we saw like a blip when he was in Chicago, but I don't know that I'm believing that. And I do want to see, like, obviously the Panthers are like a 7.5 point underdog this week, so should be a lot more passing. I want to see what they do with Samuel. I want to see if Bonifant gets more of the passing down work in this offense. You know, I think though that's definitely stuff that I'm keeping an eye on this week, because I'm not going to feel great about playing him at all. But if I add him and he actually goes off and has a nice performance here, I'm going to feel much better about him going forward.
Yeah, it's again, as far as looking at like the immediate future right now, I picked the Panthers team total under 17.5 as my best bet of the week, and I'm sticking to that. Like, I just don't see them scoring very many points this weekend in a game where the Chargers are probably just going to wind that clock the whole day. And, this is going to be like more of a preemptive ad to where if Mike Davis really struggles this week, there's a distinct possibility that we see Reggie Bonifant take over as the lead running back with Curtis Samuel and him actually splitting the touches out of the backfield.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think, this could be I don't want to say Ty Montgomery-esque situation, but this could be a situation where I'm really excited to see what Joe Brady does, because he was incredibly creative at LSU. Obviously got Clyde Edwards-Helaire vaulted significantly. I'm wondering if he can do some of the similar stuff with Samuel, especially on a team that has so much other depth at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Robbie Anderson as a resurgence, or we could just say that he escaped the curse of Adam Gase. And DJ Moore, he's extremely good too. So the Panthers have 2 really good wide receivers to where they could utilize Samuel away from that position and be able to use the tight ends a little bit more, as we all expected. Ian Thomas, where the hell has he been in this offense?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's funny because we'll spend the first couple weeks talking about all these players and then wonder why they're not there, and then we'll be looking back come week 12 and feel a lot better. So don't go too crazy, but yeah, this might be a good opportunity for Ian Thomas to break out. We'll see. Okay. Anything else you want to get to? Any other games that are garnering your interest this week?
Let's see here. I know we talked Tennessee, Minnesota. I mentioned that, and I do really think, like, from a fantasy perspective, I really think that this is the week that Derrick Henry is going to see the touchdowns that we all expected last week against the Jaguars. I mean, for this dude not to have found the end zone yet, I think is pretty crazy. For the amount of touches that he's seen, and people are already down on him. I know I talk a ton of Henry crap. Like, he's not my favorite player, but in terms of fantasy, I think he's an extreme buy low right now. And if somebody's pissed off or they're upset in your league and you just shoot them over, a decent offer, maybe they say yes.
Yeah. If you're let's talk about that. If you're buying low on a couple players, Derrick Henry definitely makes sense. Somebody I'd buy today. What about T.Y. Hilton? Is he a buy low player, or do you think today is just a good matchup? And then going forward, probably somebody to avoid.
It's tough because I've had him on a few teams and he seems to always disappoint. But I do think he is a buy low opportunity, with the fact that last week's week would have been much bigger if he wouldn't have dropped a wide open touchdown that he's claimed that the sun got in his eyes. But Rivers is targeting him. Paris Campbell's out for the season. We both like Michael Pittman, but where's the quarterback going to go other than their veterans? And we all expect T.Y. Hilton to fit into that kind of Keenan Allen, safety net kind of role. So I do think there's an opportunity when they start playing closer games, like especially when they have to face Tennessee, which is going to give them a lot of problems. I think T.Y. is a good buy low option for somebody who is already set at their wide receiver 1 and 2 and could kind of get him on the cheap right now.
Yeah. Any other preemptive ads or players you're trying to acquire before kickoff? We mentioned Bonifon. We mentioned T. Higgins. I think Michael Pittman's interesting. Have we got official word on whether Jack Doyle's playing today?
I have not seen that news yet.
I'm wondering because Mo Alley-Cox is legit, and I think if he can be a part of this offense consistently, I think there's a big role for him. Let's see.
I will say another guy I'm looking to acquire on the trade market right now, who people are just kind of so on right now, is Deandre Swift for the Lions. He's seeing an increased amount of opportunities. He's clearly the best back out of that backfield. AP, who knows how long he's going to last, but they love Swift as a receiver. I think last week he saw 5 or 6 targets again. He dropped a touchdown in week 1 against the Bears. So, I mean, his fantasy production would be a lot bigger if he had just held on to that ball. And a lot of people are just kind of, he's not going to get used in the running game, blah, blah, blah. But this Detroit team's going to be trailing a lot, and they're going to have to use DeAndre Swift a ton this year.
Yeah. Jack Doyle is playing. Would you start Mo Alley-Cox, or would you be like, Jack Doyle's going to be annoying enough where Mo Alley-Cox is going to be worth playing?
Man, I think I'd be okay taking a shot on Mo Alley-Cox if I was in a matchup where I felt confident that my position players were, had pretty safe floors. I like Indianapolis running a ton of 2 tight end sets. Philip Rivers loves the tight ends. I think Mo Alley-Cox takes over for that kind of more downfield passing role for the Colts tight ends anyways. So yeah, why not?
Like, would you like Mo Alley-Cox or Dan Arnold?
Oh, you had to go there, huh? I'm going with the guy on the better passing team. I'm going to go with Dan Arnold. If I'm going deep dive and I'm taking a flyer on somebody, I'm going with the 6'6" Arnold this week.
Dan Arnold or Logan Thomas?
If it's full PPR, I'm going Logan Thomas.
Dan Arnold or Dalton Schultz of your Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, man. Give me Dan Arnold.
Man, you were just all in on Dan Arnold.
Yes, he is my Arnold.
Thoughts and prayers, my friend. Thoughts and prayers. That's...
You heard it here first, folks. Yeah. Dan Arnold will score a touchdown. Third. He will score a touchdown this week against Detroit.
Let's find a Dan Arnold player prop because I know they exist. Let's go to our friend.
He probably falls under the field. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, probably. Let's see here. Tools, prop shop, Dan Arnold. Let's see. His over under this week for receiving yards is between 29.5 and 31.5.
Oh, see.
His over under, if he gets 3 catches or DraftKings is paying 120 plus 120
for 3 receptions.
The over under is at 2.5, so 3 or more. Dan Arnold to score a touchdown is plus 350, plus 310, or plus 200, depending on where you look. It sounds like there's some money to be made on Dan Arnold this week, Mr. Brian Twining. You could get 33-1 on him to score 2 touchdowns against Detroit.
I don't see anybody on this Cardinals roster, even DeAndre Hopkins, really having those kind of double-digit touchdown weeks. Just because Kyler Murray, he's going to snipe a lot of those goal line touchdowns for teams.
Yeah, and I was looking I'm playing Kyler in DFS, and I don't know that I love stacking him with any receiver. I mean, Hopkins would clearly be the guy if you do. But he does like to spread it out a little bit and actually kind of likes using Kyler with Kenny and Drake in a little a Cardinal stack.
Yeah, I like that too. And then I'm probably going to do it in at least one lineup where I'm in one of those leagues where it's like 150 max entries. I'm probably going to throw Larry Fitzgerald in there in a DraftKings lineup for pure PPR upside, just because without Christian Kirk, the three main cogs in that offense this week are going to be DeAndre Hopkins, Kenyon Drake, and Larry Fitzgerald, with Dan Arnold trailing slightly behind to get the 3 to 4 receptions and a touchdown. But I think you see Fitzgerald with another 5 to 6 reception game for probably 50 or 60 yards and the potential of a score. And he's probably going to be rostered on less than 1% of teams. And if you get that touchdown, that'll be a huge boon to your success.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great point.
That is going to be predicated on Detroit's ability to stay in this game, though. So they're going to have to keep it close early, because if they get behind, I think you see Arizona slow it down a little bit, use more of Kenyon Drake, because Detroit's run defense has been so bad. So,
Yeah, and I expect Arizona to win pretty big here, and I think it's a lot of Kenyon Drake, and so that's why I'm kind of leaning that way. And we just see Kyler use his legs so much that even in a game where he's not throwing quite as much, or he might be more inclined to take it down and take off with it, and maybe he gets like another 50, 60 yards, even if he's not getting 350 on it through the air. But yeah, is Kyler your favorite quarterback play in DFS this week?
Man, that's a tough call. I'm going to be a homer in this aspect, and I'm going to take Dak, just with the knowledge of it's not going to matter how Seattle does it. They're going to be able to move the ball up and down the field against the Cowboys defense. And whether Dak is throwing to Zeke or throwing to Cooper, throwing to Gallup, throwing to CeeDee Lamb, throwing to Dalton Schultz, or running it in for a touchdown, I just think the upside that's in this Cowboys offense this week, and we saw it last week against Atlanta, that I think Dak is my favorite guy.
Yeah, no, and I like the idea of like Dak and Michael Gallup and one of the Seattle pass catchers instead of using Russell Wilson. But I don't know. I think that, like, just think about how lucky we are that we're going to be able to go this afternoon from Cowboys Seattle into Saints Packers, and then tomorrow we get Ravens Chiefs.
Dude, this weekend of games, like this weekend slate, is one of the best that I've seen in a really long time as far as the matchups that we're getting.
Yeah. Okay. I don't see any more questions. We've been rolling for about 40 minutes. Any other hot takes, preemptive ads, anything else you want to get out before week 3 slate gets going in a big way?
I mean, other than me saying that Dan Arnold is going to be fantasy relevant this week, I think that's about as far as I'm willing to go. So that way, if I miss, I'm only missing on one.
Yeah, I like that call quite a bit. I just saw this on Twitter. I think it's really interesting, and I this might be my hot take. AJ Green or Russell Gage, if you have to start one.
I got to go with the opportunity share for a better offense. I'm going to go with Russell Gage.
Me too. I thought it was going to be a little hot takey, but no, I think it makes a ton of sense.
We've been all over Russell Gage since the beginning of the season, and I found it, it was kind of ridiculous that he wasn't rostered on more teams for an Atlanta offense in an even year that we've spoke about so many times with Matt Ryan, where he just continues to prove it time and time again that when we're in an even year, he balls out. Dude has 6 touchdowns this year. He's on pace for something like 5,300 yards. Like, yes, give me all of the Atlanta pass catchers possible.
Yeah, and it's funny too because Matt Ryan is hard to watch in terms of because sometimes he'll start off incredibly ice cold, but yes, Roy, Julio is out. Yeah, Julio is officially out today. Russell Gage is vaulted. But Matt Ryan will have one half where he's just not great. And it might be the first half. It might be the second half. at the end of the day, he's still going to get you that 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yep. To that point, real quick, that is something else that I think is really interesting. That a Falcon stack this week would probably be really good on DFS because there's probably not a lot of people that are going to be pounding that rock without Julio there. And because he's still going to be able to throw the ball. No matter how good Chicago is, they're at home. Atlanta's going to chuck it 40-plus times in this game because Chicago's been playing at a lot faster pace than what we saw last year. And with Mitchell Trubisky out there, there's a good opportunity for turnovers and or 3-and-outs. And, Matt Ryan is pretty much an every week option, unless you're like me and you have Josh Allen too, to where this week I'm like shooting myself over which one I'm playing.
Should we be worried about Todd Gurley?
I have to admit, I missed on this. Todd Gurley looks like crap.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned.
He looks slow.
Yeah.
I saw a stat. He's forced 0 missed tackles. 0 missed tackles on the season. Is that bad?
Is that bad? That seems less than ideal.
Yeah, I think that's pretty bad. I mean, let's consider the fact that Frank Gore, who's like 10 years older than him, 10 years his senior, has forced more missed tackles than this dude, and he's only really played 1 game. So
yeah, Frank Gore is hilarious to me. I feel like people for about 10 years have been saying that Frank Gore is old and going to retire and get injured and this, that, and the third. And people kept saying, oh, he wasn't a value in fantasy drafts because of whatever. And yet here he is still playing. His son's in college playing football, and he's still in the NFL doing his thing. And granted, it's Adam Gase is an idiot and doesn't want to play good players, but it's funny that this is where we're at.
Yeah, real quick before we get out of here, I just saw Adam Schefter just tweeted, a lot of catches and touchdowns are down today. With Michael Thomas is out. He has the most receptions in the NFL since 2016. Devontae Adams is doubtful, the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL since 2016. And Julio Jones ruled out, the most receiving yards in the NFL with 6,100 since 2016. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, and by the way, I have both Devontae Adams and Julio Jones in a league. So, yeah.
Yeah, as somebody who had those guys as his 1, 2, and 3 ranked receivers heading into the season, it's not a great start. Let's see, Lazard, MVS, or Russell Gage. I think Russell Gage pretty clearly, right?
Russell Gage is a top 20 play this week, I think.
Yeah, I like Lazard and MVS, especially if Devontae Adams doesn't play.
I think that's a running back game with Marshawn Lattimore back there covering whoever they put on the left side of the field. I think we see a lot more Jamal Williams, as you can see if you read my article, Time to Shine or Ride the Pine at fakepigskin.com. I think Aaron Jones is heavily used again this week, and probably Robert Tonyan. But I don't think the receivers are going to see as much play in Green Bay as we expect.
I think as the game goes along, though, because I think this is going to be a game that the Saints win and win probably pretty comfortably.
I agree.
So I could see in the second half a little more usage. But yeah, I feel so much better about Gage just from a consistency, from a volume. I mean, we've seen him be incredibly productive with Julio and Calvin and Hayden Hurst and Todd Gurley. That not having Julio should only solidify that safety and weekly floor.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, it's time to get out of here. It's time to get our stuff prepped and enjoy week 3. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Make sure you come back tomorrow or Tuesday to check out our waiver wire preemptive picks, as well as Fridays for our little weekly preview, betting preview, all that good stuff. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.